be talking about Platform 9 actually moving out of the public clouds and onto private infrastructure backed by OpenStack. So Platform 9 basically started out small startup, born into the cloud, chose AWS because it made sense, and come 5 years later, we ended up with an extremely high Amazon bill that we weren't expecting, or kind of grew on us silently, and we adapted. So we needed to exit. So that's what my talk's going to be about. Anybody here in the same situation where Amazon or Google or Azure is taking way more money than you had planned? Hands? Anybody? We got a couple hands. All right, cool. So there's a solution.
Would you like the clicker?
I'll take the clicker.
Might be more useful for you than me.
Yeah. All right, let's see how this clicker works. So yeah, Cody Hill, moving production to Amazon. The problem, what problem are we trying to solve, right? So essentially, as we grew, Amazon grew exponentially, and essentially we're spending about 157% of what we had budgeted for infrastructure spend, only in Amazon, right? And one of the other problems that we were trying to solve was that the sizes, even though Amazon has a lot of sizes available, they're not one size fits all. And we were having to over-provision because the amount of CPU that we needed wasn't quite right in that VM, or the amount of RAM, or that mix wasn't proper for our workloads, which required us to over-provision, which then cost a lot more money. So those were the problems that we're really trying to solve, was cut down on spend and get more optimal hardware placement. So the requirements, right? So we went through and kind of said, hey, what do we need from a new solution or a new vendor if we go a new hosting provider, right? So we went through this and said, hey, well, security is important. Amazon does a good job of giving you tools to lock down security and gives you DDoS protection and all kinds of good stuff that you get. So security was important. We wanted isolation from other customers, right? Hardware and networking. But number two is cost. Right, we needed to cut our spend, and so we set the benchmark at 33%. We needed to cut at least a third of our bill, or it wasn't worth the hassle of moving off of Amazon, right? And everything needed to be automatable, right? So we didn't want to have to put in a ticket, right? So if we went to like a CenturyLink data center or a Equinix data center and got their services, we would have to put in a ticket, and they would have to ship a human to do stuff. And we said, no, we're not going to do that. Right? And we also wanted it to be extremely low maintenance, right? So we didn't want to be doing firmware upgrades and all the low-level stuff that you just don't have to do in Amazon, right? You don't have to do any of that goofiness in Amazon. And we didn't want to do it. So we were looking for something that was, extremely low maintenance for us, and we could do that. And as far as the technology goes, right, we wanted servers that fit the size of our environment, right? For storage, we knew we were going to be using OpenStack and Kubernetes in this environment, so it needed to be Cinder compatible storage, it needed to be Kubernetes compatible storage, and we knew we wanted it to be scale out. We didn't want to have to roll in a big box and then roll that box out and ship a new big box in. We wanted it to grow as we grew, right? And then networking, we needed firewalling, we needed BGP, all the big stuff that you need inside of a data center. We wanted to be able to have these services available to us. So we went out and evaluated some vendors. Oh, that didn't work how I wanted it to. It was supposed to build. Oh, well. So all these vendors up here, right, we went out and started talking to and looking at, and we disqualified some of them because just looking at them, and others we talked to and actually evaluated, and we started really trying to build a solution that would fit, that kind of met the requirements on the previous page, right? And so the vendors that we selected was, of course, ourselves, right? Platform 9. We actually evaluated ourselves against other CMPs. They weren't on the list, right? Because why give out the enemy's name? But we evaluated, just make sure that we weren't, going with ourselves just because, we were us. And we really decided that Platform 9 orchestrating infrastructure with Daytera hardware, who will be having a lightning talk they talked earlier, inside of Packet's data centers, right? So Packet has a bare metal as a service infrastructure that I'll talk a little bit about. And having us orchestrate all that together was an awesome solution. And then we ended up using an open source edge firewall called ViOS. So that's the edge of our cloud, and it's highly available. Does BGP peering? It's pretty cool. If you don't know ViOS, check it out. There was some OpenStack Summit talks about it. Right. So just a little intro on Packet. Right. So they donated some slides, but essentially Packet was built by developers for developers. Right. So they are Amazon but bare metal. You can go get servers, pay by the hour. You're getting bare metal infrastructure, and you can build whatever you want on top of them, right? So it's pretty cool stuff. And here's a little marketing slide that they have kind of comparing them to the public clouds. But basically, you're getting bare metal infrastructure, so you don't have any of the issues that you have running on top of Amazon, right? There's no crazy lock-in. You're getting raw access to the hardware, so you get that performance. But you still get all the benefits of paying by the hour and that OpEx spend and all of that. Packet knew that we were doing this. They're here today. So they actually came up with a promo code for this event. Everybody, if you're going to take pictures, this is one to take pictures of. 25 free cloud credits in Packet. They have servers that I think start at like 5 cents an hour, right? So $25 can get you a little bit of compute to play around and check their stuff out. So go to app.packet.net/sign-up, punch in OSB Day 2018, and you'll get some credits. So Daytera is also a big part of this, right? And so they did a talk earlier today kind of talking about the value prop of Daytera, and I think they have another lightning talk. But really for me, the value of Daytera was they met those checkboxes, right? They are a scale-out solution. They helped us. They were very cost competitive, right? So we were able to save money, right? Reduced by 33% from Amazon. And they integrated with Kubernetes and integrated with OpenStack. And the performance was amazing, right? So we worked very closely with the Daytera team now. We really like their stuff. And so they are the backing behind our cloud, right? And then Platform 9, right? So why are other people choosing Platform 9? This is the only Platform 9 marketing deck I have here. I kept it down to 1. You're welcome. But essentially what Platform 9 does is we take open source software that's difficult to deploy and maintain, OpenStack, Kubernetes, serverless stuff with Fission. We package it up and deliver it as a SaaS offering. So we host the control plane. You bring your compute from everywhere, anywhere. Could be Packet, could be your own private data center. We wire that in, and then you get a full-blown private cloud in minutes. And then we've also extended that to public cloud. So you can use the OpenStack API. You might have saw us on stage at the Barcelona event announcing Omni, where essentially you can wire in Amazon, Azure, and Google as OpenStack regions in your cloud. So use the same OpenStack API and consume all of your infrastructure anywhere, right? So that's the value prop of Platform 9. Pretty much sums it up. Oh, and we support VMware if we have any VMware people still around as a hypervisor. So other considerations for the cloud, right? What are some of the other things that we had to consider that we really didn't have to deal with in Amazon, right? I have no clue how I'm doing on time, by the way. I don't have a timer. So monitoring. So we had to figure out how are we going to monitor all of this new infrastructure that we didn't have to deal with, right? So Packet gave us bare metal servers. That's great. We have bare metal. But how do we know if the hypervisor's disk space or performance or the bandwidth that we have on those edge devices, how do we know that those things are all taken care of? How do we aggregate logs and all these things that Amazon just did stuff in the background that we didn't care about, right? So we did have to figure out a pretty good monitoring stack, right? So these are all of the pieces that we kind of put together. And that's actually the dashboard as of yesterday on how our cloud's doing. And everything's green. So we got a little bit of orange there, but everything's basically green. And we have a nice setup where Prometheus is gathering gathering all the metrics. It's being displayed through Grafana. We're building alerts with Alert Manager that'll page us via VictorOps and Slack. And then we also have all of the OpenStack components for all of the workloads we deploy in Gnoki. Well, Grafana has a Gnoki plugin, so we're pulling in all those metrics as well. And then we have and not an elk stack because it's has fluent D instead of Logstash, but an EFK stack running as well for all our log aggregations. That's something we had to think about. Something else we had to think about was we were heavily dependent on RDS. We had an RDS deployment for our customers to host all of their databases and all of that. And how are we going to handle those databases? We didn't want to run them all like old school and spin up a bunch of MySQL instances and manage them with config management or something. We wanted a service that we could rely on, like we relied on RDS. It did automatic snapshotting. We can create new instances from previous snapshots. It's all API driven. So with this is going to be a new Platform 9 managed product. We talked about Kubernetes and OpenStack. So we're coming out with PMDB. Eventually, someday we'll sell it, but right now it's designed for us internally to replace RDS, right? So we're using I pronounced it Persona, some people call it Procana, but the Procana database with Kubernetes and an object store for all that backups and snapshotting. And we're building that all into a Kubernetes operator. So it should be very easy to roll and deploy. And I'm really hoping that we're just going to open source the whole thing, and then you'll come to us if you want support. And I think that's the plan, unless something changes. So we're hoping to have a true database as a service built on top of Kubernetes that we could just give to the community. The finished product, right? So this is our cloud. We weren't very big, right? So we only have about terahertz of processing power, 3 terabytes of RAM. We're not a huge environment, but just this amount of stuff in Amazon became extremely cost prohibitive, right? So you don't have to be huge to get cost savings leaving Amazon. We have 2 cloud regions. We have our primary and we have our DR site in Packet. One hosted here in Sunnyvale, the other hosted in New Jersey. And that's about that slide. And we have multiple availability zones, right? So we have 12 servers in our primary site. They're separated in multiple availability zones. And one of the things that the Platform 9 cloud has that not a lot of other people have is high availability built in. So if you were a VMware customer or have ever used it and a hypervisor went down in the middle of the night and your VMs powered back on magically on the remaining hypervisors, yeah, we built that into OpenStack and open sourced it. So that is built in and that's enabled on these hypervisors as well. And I think, yeah, and so this is the kind of the architecture diagram inside of Packet's data center. Just something I kind of threw in here just to kind of lay out how we built this out, right? So off to the bottom right, you see we have our Datera cluster that's running inside of Packet data center, right? So because Datera is just commodity hardware with super cool software on it, they can use Packet's infrastructure to spin out nodes and do that, so that's pretty cool. And then we spun out a few other clusters as well as our database as a service cluster in Kubernetes. That's where all of our compute nodes and all of that's running. And then we have our network services cluster. It's a 2-node cluster. These are all set up in different racks. You can see the AZs are different racks inside of the data center to kind of make sure if we lose an entire rack, we only lose 25% of our capacity. And we have our edge firewalls there, name servers, DNS servers, as well as the Glance and Cinder controllers for our cloud. So we're a SaaS company, so all of the OpenStack control plane stuff runs outside of this, but Glance and Cinder are in the data path, so we had to run that somewhere. The end result of all of this, we were targeting a 33% cost savings. We got 76. So we cut our budget down significantly. I've been trying to negotiate a piece of that, but it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, we got crazy cost savings going with this model, way more than we expected. Questions?
Can I bring on PMDB? Is there a roadmap? Expect to like, or do you think CNCF to give it away? What's the
Yeah, so he asked on the time frame of PMDB. So PMDB stands for Platform 9 Managed Database. I'm sure we'll come up with some other open source name that's cooler than that for the open source project. I know that we're hoping to have a early alpha that other people can try towards the end of this year. And then we'll figure it out from there. Yeah. Any other questions? Going once. Oh. Yes. Yeah, so we had to add 2 employees to manage all this. So we chose a data center provider that does everything as a service. We chose our SaaS offering, right, to run OpenStack and Kubernetes as a service. We don't need people that know OpenStack and Kubernetes deeply on our team to manage it. And our existing AWS staff that was managing and running stuff in AWS was able to run this cloud. So 2 extra headcount was added in. We still saved that amount.